Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary and Ronald's Records. Make sure to click the link below and go check them out. Guarantee you're going to like them. With that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hello, my name is Colin Jenkins.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Excited to be here. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Tinder profile of music. That's great. My name is Colin Jenkins. Why did I say that again? Yeah. Well, I should have said I go by Colin Jenkins as I play music live.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have another instrumental music moniker called CGJ.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do some other things around town, playing some other bands. Not notably, but fun cover band called The Police Cars, where we only cover the police in the cars.
Oh, exciting. That's a cool mix.
Right.
And what got you started in music initially?
My mom was a music teacher, and so it was kind of mandatory at the household. And then I didn't love it at first. It took a little while, but then when I saw my older brother lean into playing guitar and sort of kind of creating his own identity that way, I sort of wanted to copy him. And so I started playing drums first initially, and then kind of picked up the guitar a little bit later.
Okay.
Got into singing a little bit later, and then songwriting, kind of in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And yeah, the rest is kind of history after that. Just kind of moved around and found friends to play music with. And
yeah. And is that when you got into singing, was that around the time you got into more synth stuff as well?
Oh, maybe not. I think that I took piano lessons when I was younger. And so
okay. So you kind of always had them around.
Yeah, for sure. I liked my piano lessons, but then I started doing some picking up jazz charts of old standards and stuff like that, and trying to figure out chords and voicings and trying to play melodies and chords at the same time. And I kind of fell in love with a little bit of that jazzier sound that sort of catapults into a lot of funk and soul, and R&B and stuff like that. And
gotcha. Okay, well, I could definitely see how that has influenced your music of today.
For sure, yeah. And
yeah. No, but we'll dig into more of your present music in a little bit.
Sure.
I have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody.
Let's go in the foundation.
Yeah, and this first one is one we ask early. It's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Good grief. It's hard to say. I mean, with my own money, I was really into Boys to Men, so I'm going to probably say Boys to Men 2.
Oh, hell yeah.
Something like that.
That's a quality album, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They, I feel like they don't get as much of the recognition as everybody else that was kind of around at their time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I always got where I was growing up, it was always Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, but then
for sure.
98 Degrees, I feel kind of edged them out as well.
Yeah, they definitely got, I mean, I think that the song, the top tier songwriters started giving their songs to the white boy bands.
Yeah.
That was more marketable, I suppose, at that time, because they found some sort of a niche audience with those groups of, younger girls, I suppose. But yeah, Boyz II Men, I mean, they're a mainstay.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like one you wanted to go to? So like you saw it was happening, got tickets, went to it.
I think, well, yeah, good question. These are some deep pulls into the back caverns of my brain here. I mean, a total 180 from the genres that we were just talking about, but
just Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah, right, for sure. Well, I mean, like a lot of like punk rock and stuff was like kind of consumer counterculture for like high schoolers and stuff like that, you know. And so I was like kind of into also into you know, punk rock bands and stuff like that. I think, you know, like going to like Warped Tour or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
You know, as like a teen.
Yeah, no, I did.
And like in that there were like, you know, lots of different genres of music that kind of like were on like this kind of like skate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like all under the umbrella of like skateboarder music, right? Like Jurassic 5, NoFX, lots of reggae type of stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, man, I miss Warped Tour. I miss Warped Tour when it was like in its prime.
Yeah, for sure.
That was really, I think, a special moment that hopefully more people appreciate it than I feels like they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, there was sort of a thing where, you know, I think like lots of kids from the area found like a niche of other younger kids that like the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you kind of got to meet.
And like I kind of like, you know, made fun of it by calling it consumer counterculture, but like, you know, I mean, it is sort of like the mainline counterculture of like, you know, radio stuff or you know, whatever you were listening to.
Well, like I think too, even like that was a spot where you would go and see people that were like similar-ish.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't have found out about. Like I remember that's how I found out about Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah, for sure.
Like just a band I had never heard of in my, like I was going for like 3 other bands and they were just playing on a second stage and someone was like, hey, we have to go watch them. And I saw them. I was like, how is he playing lead and singing? Like what is this? Yeah.
Sure.
Like, that was definitely.
That was a genre. I mean, I don't know if you call Coheed and Cambria like kind of an emo kind of thing.
Yeah, they were
melodic and really cool songs and excellent musicians too.
Very much so. And then I found out later that the like singer has his own like comic that like all the music is based off of, and there's like a big dark story there, which kind of it inspired a concept that never came to be with a band in the past. But I always thought that was really interesting how he was able to blend multiple medias like that.
Yeah, sure.
But we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about you. And we've got one last question to go before we move into more of what you're doing in the present day.
Yeah.
Do you have? I mean, and it seems like you've kind of had music around your whole life. So this may be a little more of a broad answer, but do you have like a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
I don't know for sure. I mean, I think like, you know, I was playing drums when I was like 12 or something like that. I got a drum set for my birthday and sort of had some drum lessons on and off throughout like junior high and high school. I think that sometimes like a lot of kids don't know what they're going to do or what they want to do with music at first.
Yeah.
And so I didn't necessarily like rebel against it, but because it was sort of like this mandatory thing in my household that I wanted to do something else, you know, and I didn't find out that I really wanted to do music maybe until like I was a junior in high school or something like or senior. I think I learned how to play more than words and sing it at the same time on the guitar at one point. And I think that I was like at a party and there was a guitar there and I just picked it up and I started playing and singing that song. And like I don't think anybody knew that I was a guitar player, singer person because I was mostly just sports and stuff. And then like I immediately got a ton of attention from, you know,
kind of from everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And I was like, oh, okay, this is the thing that I can lean into because I mean, like, I don't know. It's creative outlet, you know.
Very much so.
It's a way to create community, you know, and in a vain way, you know, you get attention from other people.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good way to be in front of like, especially when you're younger. Like that was kind of something I really enjoyed about the band thing is like, it was hard for me to be in front of people sometimes.
Sure.
When I was playing music, I didn't have as much of an issue. Like,
for sure, yeah.
And then afterwards, you had something to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you had to like stand in front of 50 people and just talk, just it would be a very anxiety ridden thing. But if you're like playing music, like the music sort of speaks for itself,
Very much so.
Yeah.
And actually, since you mentioned that you did sports, I've been checking in with people whenever they do. Because I'm curious to know, because I was never a big sports person growing up. I was music when I got into it and music from then on. But what are some of the similarities you found between like your practices in sports and like the actions and like being in front of people for for the games and things like that, and the crossover of like how it would compare to music?
Yeah, I think just putting in the time, the old KISS method. No, I'm sorry, what I'm saying. It's not the KISS method. That's keep it simple, stupid.
I mean, that counts in music too.
Yeah, there you go. The 6P method is what I'm looking for. Prior planning prevents poor performance.
Oh,
So,
I know it's slightly different, but
as long as you're putting in your time before the gig or the game or the race or whatever you're trying to do, you know it's going to go as well as you want to.
Very much so.
If you don't,
Yeah. And did you do track and field then?
I did some track and field, did cross country. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I started getting back into it after like 2020 lockdown or whatever.
Yeah.
Social distancing year.
I found that a lot of people that got into running have a good time doing vocals because they are already like trained in breathing.
Oh, wow.
And that seems like an interesting crossover.
Sure.
Yeah.
The breathing thing is something that I don't necessarily think about as much when I am running.
Well, you'd been doing it for so long. I'm sure it's just kind of developed into you at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, but thank you for going through that. Like I said, I like to check with everybody. Eventually, I'm going to put out a thesis on it. But let's go ahead and get on into you in the present day. And we're going to get what I feel like is probably a super easy one out of the way. How'd you pick the name?
Oh, my name? What do you mean?
Yeah. Is it just your name?
It's just my name,
Okay,
yeah. So I was in a few bands before Colin Jenkins. There was a band that I had that was kind of like a loungier pop band with a little bit less of electronica element to it. Like the all the instruments are live. It's called Rio Grandes.
Oh, okay.
And when that band kind of ended, I was like, I'm not going to choose yet another new band name.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have something that I'll just carry with me until I fade away or retire softly,
That's fair.
This is my name, and I'm not going to try to come up with something clever. There was a second where I had another band called Rocky and the Proms, and I had like my fake name was Rocky, and that was I don't know, that's just not me,
That's
fake names aren't something that I can really pull off. And then my instrumental music is moniker CGJ. It's just my initials.
Okay. Yeah. And I like that concept of just being like, if it's always you can kind of move wherever you want with it.
For sure.
Kind of an interesting approach to it.
Yeah.
And I guess I had another question, but it kind of eluded me. So we're going to move into another format one. What was the first, sorry, it's been a long day already.
Yeah, Jimmy, it's all right.
Let's go through your writing process.
Okay.
Because, you have a really interesting presence on stage. Like I've seen you solo, I've seen you with the band.
Yeah.
And I mean, your sound is really good. Like we'll dig into that in a little bit. But when it comes to putting music together, how do you get a track started?
Oh man, just copying other people. No, just joking. Halfway joking. I think there's a couple of different doors to walk through. I think a lot of people will and myself included, will think of something clever, think of a hook. It doesn't even necessarily have to have like a melodic phrase to it, or it could, put it in your phone or something like that, write it down, or maybe like if you're by your computer, like do like a quick little session and like maybe do sort of like a little hook, something, and come back to it a little bit later, see if it's worth it, and then like lean into that. And then oftentimes a whole song will kind of show up in your brain at once. You can kind of feel the whole thing all the way through, and you're just kind of like rocking out to an imaginary song somewhere, and like you kind of get a framework of it down. But I would say probably mostly just finding that small nugget, like the ahead of a trail, and just like walking down it and see where it goes, and then kind of trying out some different chord progressions. I love just like chords and interesting chords and modulations and voice leading and stuff like that. If I didn't have to come up with lyrics or a singing part or a single melodic hook, I would be totally fine with that. In fact, sometimes it kind of pisses me off that people have to do that, or I have to do that. Not that people, but although that's oftentimes 95% of the song that people can like relate to.
Yeah, that's the part that they can catch on.
Yeah, right.
Keep in their head the catchy elements.
The catchy element, or like the message and whatnot. But yeah, I think that those are the main wins that I will kind of trails that I'll follow. But every once in a while, I'll come up with like the chord progression first, and then try to fit in the melody after that. Those aren't as, I don't know, those don't come to fruition to songs as much, just because I feel like the first thing that you really have to have is the big hook.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Build from kind of that moment outwards versus trying to build up to it.
Totally.
Yeah. And like I said, I noticed that you have your solo performances, you have the band performance.
Yeah.
When you're writing, do you write with other people, or do you usually write solo?
Mostly solo, but I do enjoy writing with other people. But just how the project is now, with just it sort of being my thing, and it's sort of a solitary experience.
Okay.
But I do like I'll have people in the band that have been in the band before, or that I've played music with a lot. Like for this last group of songs I'm going to release, just played them like sort of a template of the song, and like be like, hey, do you have any key hook ideas? And so we'll just push play, and they'll just like kind of come up with something here and there, and then I'll treat them and I'll pay them.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally try to mine their own creativity without any compensation or anything. But and I'll steal some of their ideas too, and we'll kind of collaborate and whatnot.
Okay.
But I would say that would probably be for like the secondary, or like counter melody stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. And is it mostly, do you have like the people that you're performing with regularly work on stuff with you when you do, or is it just kind of like anybody whose like sound you enjoy?
Mostly people that I'm playing music with. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. And actually, I know we just recently had Machado on the show.
Yeah, I saw that. Cool.
Yeah. And actually, I got to, the first time I ever saw you was the show where y'all were performing with a phone call at the Holocene.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
And I think that's where I got this. I think
Sands Crusher. Yeah, right. Sands Crusher, Colin Jenkins, and phone call. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good show.
That's fun. Yeah.
And once you've gotten a track finished writing, it sounds like you're pretty involved in the process for the most part. Once you've finished writing it, how long does it usually take you to get to a point where you can perform it?
I would say I perform the songs before they're like even done, you know.
So are you like workshopping them on stage?
I would say so.
Oh, okay, that's exciting.
Sure. Yeah.
And how does so will you like come up with stuff, kind of arrange what you think is a good performance for it, then go out and see how it feels and adjust it from there?
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that's pretty accurate. I would say that not oftentimes a song would be changed completely by the time I do, or if I do or don't, record it. But
yeah. No, and I actually, I was checking out, I've listened to your music for a while now before this, so this was kind of a fun one to sit down on. But I was checking out, your music that you have available on Spotify, and you've got some stuff from 2018, and it sounds like you've got some new stuff.
Yeah, right.
Which I'm excited about, and you've got the CGR stuff, and that's really interesting because it is more like beat driven. It's more like the instrumental sides of things. But I want to talk about a couple tracks one off your EP and one off of your album.
Sure. Yeah.
And the first one is Runaround.
Okay.
Big fan. It's a great way to start it. It's just from the get, it's so engaging.
Cool.
It starts with kind of this open airy space, and the intro grabs you. The bass is great, and just the verses are solid all the way through. And then by the time it gets to the hook, it's just kind of built into, like you said, how you build from the hooks out.
Yeah.
By the time it gets to that point, it's just such a big and explosive experience. And I just think it really grabs. But then the other track, which I almost picked Paper Trails as that first one.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the bass on that hits so hard.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
And actually, when I was interviewing Coleman Hell,
yeah,
you can hear the bass from that track when you were
nice.
when you were doing soundtrack in that interview, just a smidge.
I listened to that interview. That was really cool.
Yeah, he's a super fun guy.
He's super fun, super sweet.
Yeah,
cool story. Yeah,
I'm sad we only got to do a short interview because they had to go get ready for the show after.
For sure. Yeah,
that was a fun. Shout out Coleman Hell for that. But then the other track was I'm Still Here, and that one just like it's a little more chill, and it has this like really lulling element. There's something about it where it's like it was really mellow, but the energy of elements in it were really high. Like the snare and the clap, like that sound kind of merged together.
Yeah.
It was so big that like it didn't let you kind of zone out, but it didn't feel intrusive. The track itself was just really smooth.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Like I said, I really enjoy your sound as a whole. There's all of your music is kind of no skip music, which is really enjoyable.
Oh, thanks, dude. That's really sweet.
I'm curious to know what are some of your favorite tracks to perform?
Oh, good question. I think that Hard Candy has always been a pretty good one. People like that one. It's fun. It's got a little bit of a dancey vibe to it. I've always liked another song on the album called "Why'd You Hide Your Love," and "Get My Weed From You." I think are pretty good ones that I like to not leave off the set list. But "Paper Trail" is also a really fun one.
Yeah,
just because it's so wordy and weird, and they're just like it has a brooding sort of intro, and it kind of builds in a weird way. So
very much so, yeah.
And I have this like vocal effects processor that has this like 3-part harmony thing that sort of has like a little bit of an alien voice sound that I use for the chorus that I think it's kind of fun element to bring to the stage because it's sort of like a unique vocal sound live.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And your solo rig is actually really cool. I was kind of checking it out.
Yeah, sure.
They're in the Coleman show. Like you come prepared, which I appreciate. But when I first saw you played with a band, and I was really interested to see that because I just didn't know what to expect from that. And the sound was still really full.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. The preference is always to play with the band.
Yeah.
I've done this only 2 times, and I'm happy to do it again. For Monkey Presents, their shout out. They're really sweet. Whenever they have opportunities for an opener, they hit me up.
Oh, cool.
But the preference is for them to have a solo performer.
Oh, gotcha.
And so, and it's not necessarily like the headlining band or anything. I think they just want to.
Yeah, probably easier setup, easier to tear down.
Don't give it, especially for a band that also doesn't have a live drummer, because it's just like the process of setting up all the drum mics and tearing them back down again.
Yeah, very much so.
That they would just prefer like somebody to come up and have a pretty slim down rig and
I gotcha.
Rock it. If push came to shove, and I was like, I'm not going to perform without a drummer, they'd probably be like, okay, but I'm as the opener, you want to sort of be.
Yeah, you want to be malleable.
Yeah, for sure. And I was freaked out doing that at first because I was opening up for, I wish I could remember his name. He was a Swedish or Icelandic guy who had won like the one of the big songwriting thing. It's called like Eurovision or something like that. Daddy Frey. There it is.
Okay.
Back in my brain somewhere. Anyways, he's cool. He's got like a cool little funk pop dance element to him, and so I think I was a pretty good fit for opening up. But they were like, no drums, please. And then I was like, well, if there's no drums, it'd just be weird if it was me and like Machado and a keyboard player. Like, I don't really know how to do that. So we just went full backing track, and I just played synth along, and I kind of did a little bit of Colin karaoke style with my backing tracks. But I thought it worked out pretty fine. And it was like, a sold out Wonder Ballroom, and so I was a little bit
Okay. Yeah.
I was a little bit nervous to see how that would go, but it was fine. And so now I have like, if that needs to happen more often, I can do it confidently. But
I will say, just because I have actual experience with this, my old band Smooth Talk.
Yeah,
we were
great band name.
Yeah, right. Like I'm holding on to that one. Maybe one day I'll reprise it. But we didn't have a drummer, but we were electronic funk rock.
Yeah,
and so it was keyboard player, guitar player. I did bass, talk box, and a little bit of keys, and then we had a singer,
Jimmy.
And it's an interesting experience because nobody quite understands it visually. At first, but it is doable. So I recommend, if you ever want to expand into that there's a positive response from it for sure.
For sure, yeah. There's a lot of bands. Seance Crasher, for one, I just had seen them. They had moved away from live drummer. Phone Call, good homies. It's just, you got to make sure that kick and the snare slaps
very much so,
and you got to make sure the sound person has that cranked.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's nothing more underwhelming than like a really weak backing track.
Very much so. Which, I mean, I feel like your live sound, like I said, having seen you in both settings, your live sound is really strong, and it's cool because like a lot of times when you get somebody who like uses a fair amount of like backing stuff with it, it feels very like they just took the stuff from the album and hit play. But it feels really like live and organic when you perform. What are I mean, if you don't mind getting into some of the technical aspects of it a little bit, what are some of the things you do to like make sure when you go live that you can keep kind of that open element?
I think there's a sort of a trial and error, by like hearing or feeling what you're seeing, or like hearing when you're playing live, and like, this needs to come out, this needs to stay, and honestly, there's like a lot of tracks where I don't even know where my sessions are anymore, so I just have to live with what I had been working with for the last little bit. But I think taking out, honestly, like a lot of the organic and the acoustic sounds, that way it just feels like it's intentional, like you're not trying to hide, or like you're just like, yep, this is all this is backtrack, and it's like, and there's nothing to be ashamed of with that.
No, not at all.
We've been doing it. People have been doing it since the beginning of time. Like I somehow went down like a rabbit hole and saw Elliott Smith performing live at like the Grammys or whatever, when he had like his song come out with like Good Will Hunting, and he like, and in a genre in which it would not sound cool at all, because it's like a very organic sort of rock and roll, orchestral, pop driven stuff. He played like Waltz Number 2 on stage with just him and an acoustic guitar and a full like lush backing track of his song.
Wow.
And I'm sure he probably didn't like it, or I don't know, but like, it sounded great.
Yeah.
There was like zero, I mean, like, it wasn't, I don't know. So sometimes I feel like almost every person that has some sort of element of backing track, if you're not doing hip hop, because that's like, that's where that comes from. I mean, you're biting on it, and you're sort of, you're stealing from that dimension of sound. But you just have to sort of like accept that, like, oh yeah, somebody might be talking shit about, me not having a full band right now, but like, I don't care. Like, that's their problem. If they want to have a bad Friday night, fine.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know. I think it's fairly accepted now. And like I said, I think people have become so familiar with it that they've gotten better at judging it on what the experience is like versus
there you go. Yeah.
The person.
For sure.
And I think, like, you bring a lot of personality in your performance as well. So it's not one of those things where you're just like, all right, next song.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, no, I dig that. And I guess, like you said, your music came out in 2018, but you've been doing it since then, at least, doing stuff now. In the last, let's say the last year or so, has your process changed at all? Have you like solidified it, or have you like added in new ways of going about putting music together?
Absolutely not. Well, I would say a little bit, for sure. I think that this last little bit, I sat on some songs for a little bit too long, and I would say that this isn't how I'll keep on performing. But like, I turned over more stones. Shout out to Amazon. I bought a lot of synths and returned them within 30 days.
Ah, okay. Oh, allegedly.
Allegedly. Hey, they just weren't for me, Yeah. It's fine,
No, that's the hardest game. Like I've gone through a handful myself before I like landed on the like 3 that I commit to.
Yes, for sure.
And even then I still end up selling them periodically and then picking them back up. Shout out to Micro Korg XL.
There we go. Yeah. And so I the process, I think that I would like just commit to a sound that was like on the demo and just be like, oh, that'll be the hook, like this like soft synth sound. But like this time around, I think coming from 2020, 2021, where like everybody was just like leaning in a little harder into like whatever thing that they were doing and like taking more time to perfect whatever they were doing, whether it was like, crocheting or watching whatever thing that they want to like,
hey, that's
or like,
this,
I don't know.
Will end up becoming a thing in a few years after
For
that.
Sure, yeah. But with like music, I feel like I just like wanted to explore a little bit more. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll just like try out this synth patch or this lead line on like several different keyboards. And so the process was longer, but more fun, because I feel like in there you find you learn things about music or like hardware that you didn't know before.
Yeah, you're like, that's what that stands for. That's what that knob does.
For sure. Yeah.
And do you mostly use like hardware synths, or do you have anything against like soft synths or anything like that?
Zero things against soft synths. Yeah, super fun. But I think that there is a part of you as a musician that wants to like nod to playing music live, not just like doing a MIDI track and finding some sound that lives on hardware somewhere.
Yeah, very much so.
That might be another sound from like another song that you like from like 1978 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I've always I didn't love plug-in instruments growing up because I didn't have good computers that could run them.
Yeah.
And also, I'm a firm believer that there is a little bit of magic that happens when you plug the cord in on one end and plug the cord in on the other.
Yeah,
that, like transference of electricity adds something.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that honestly, it inspires you more.
Yeah.
To like sit down. And like when you find a sound that you like, you're like, oh, hell yeah. Like instead of just like using your MIDI control and you're in your headphones and you're just like,
and just next
the 5,000 different patches that you might have available to you. So
I love when you're scrolling through a synth and just you like accidentally land on one and you don't know it at the time, but it's going to become your signature sound.
Yeah.
And you just like years down the line, you're like, I'm still using this same patch as like my lead to everything, and everybody's like, oh, that's another them song.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, that's always kind of been the soft spot for synths for me.
Yeah. I was listening to an interview with like MGMT, and their big album that had like Electric Feel and Kids and whatever on it. What was that one called?
Oh God, I am the worst with album names.
But they were like just talking about Reason, like all these stock synths on Reason, which was like a DAW that has sort of like been dated out at this point. Like,
yeah, it does not get a lot of the attention it deserves.
Yeah, for sure. And they were talking about how like, they sort of brought those into their demo sessions, and then they just ended up all these stock sounds that like, everybody else uses on that DAW ended up being all their signature sounds for like a lot of their songs that are like, ubiquitous now, even you still hear it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Wow, I never even thought of that until now. That's exactly what their sounds sound like. And I mean, it's true because Reasons, their racks and stuff like that were weirdly powerful for how little people, like everybody leaned towards Fruity Loops.
Yeah.
But nobody ever really gave Reason the opportunity to like grow into a more tangible thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I come from a world of pro audio, so I could run down that rabbit hole forever. But that is really interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Not that like that informed me to like keep using soft synths or like not being ashamed of it.
Yeah.
But like it's, you know, sounds good. It sounds good.
Exactly.
So.
And, you know, I think that especially now there are more capable things than there were like, you know, 5-10 years ago.
For sure.
Like, shout out to Omnisphere. It does so many things. That and Trillion are like two of my favorite plugins of all time.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll nerd out on gear forever.
Yeah. We're losing some viewers at this point.
Yeah. But let's get back into it. And actually, let's talk about some of your new music.
Sure.
And, you know, obviously, you know, you're working on it. You don't want to give too much away, but how would you describe it? Like, what are some of the like characteristics of your new sound?
I would say it's not straying too much further away from what I had done before. I mean, which is sort of like leaning in or like leading with like a lot of jazzier chord progressions, more R&B style chord progressions.
Okay.
The one element that I kind of got carried away with was using a lot of samples from like retro video games, essentially. So I would say almost every single song on the album has sort of a sound or a palette of sounds from like familiar sounds of video games. So like one song that I have has a ton of Mario Kart samples on it.
Okay.
And not that the song has anything to do with Mario Kart.
Yeah.
But I think it was just a lot of fun, I think, when I was making a lot of beats with CGJ. Just to like, yeah, let's take like the princess like howling when she's like, you know, turning a corner until like, you know, the end of a 4-bar phrase, you know. I don't know. It's and some Street Fighter stuff. Altered Beast, you know, some stuff that you would find at like Quarter World or, you know.
Oh, okay. So you went like all kinds of, you didn't like stick to like just Nintendo sounds. Like,
no, yeah.
You like kind of went all the way across.
For sure. Yeah. Some Donkey Kong in there. So, and, you know, not that that's, I think that that's sort of been done before, but I just like went really hard with it. Yeah. A lot of the 8-bit, 16-bit sound.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting. And I feel like it is nostalgia, you know, for folks that, you know, grew up playing video games.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be that ear tickle, especially when there's like one they notice.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I remember, I can't remember what the track is now, but I remember I heard like a Yoshi's Island sound once in a song, and I was just like, there's no way this is in here right now. Yeah. And like I had to go like check a bit of gameplay just to be like, that's exactly what this is. For
sure. Yeah. And I think I started that a little bit earlier in Run Around. You'll hear the Mario coin in there sometimes too.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's exciting. That's I think a fun way to go about it.
Yeah.
And you know, in this day and age, music is so much like you can kind of do whatever you want as long as it feels good.
Yeah.
And
leaning into whatever, like, yeah, I mean, that's just one way to create your own unique sound, you know, you're not copying, you're not biting, you're just like doing whatever you think is funny and interesting.
Yeah, very much so. And now let's go ahead, let's take a moment and let's step back. We've zoomed in all the way to music that you haven't even put out yet.
Sure.
But let's look at music as a whole. What are some of the things about more like current music you're hearing, or like stuff that's at least new to you that you find like inspiring or interesting?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I mean, I listen to a lot of rap, listen to a lot of hip hop. I feel like the production in that particular genre, I don't know, like Doja Cat samples Burt Bacharach's "Walk On By," you know?
Yep.
And it's like, I mean, a lot of kids don't know that, but like, I fucking love Burt Bacharach, you know?
Yeah.
So like, just those two merges of worlds, I think, are just super fun. Yeah, I would say, I mean, like that, but that's just like classic sampling and stuff like that. So I still get excited about stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I agree with you. I think there's kind of this interesting surgence of like sounds from all over the place ending up in like more modern spaces now. Whereas like before it was like they had to find this like super obscure something to like make sure that nobody knew what it was.
Oh, sure.
Now it's now they're more open to being like, no, you're gonna know this maybe. Yeah. And if you do know this, you're gonna connect with it in a really like intimate way.
Yeah.
And And now, before we move into the next portion, this next question is probably the densest question in the interview.
Let's go.
But we've talked a lot about, your experience with music, the actions, the reactions, things like that. But when you get down to it, when it's just you and the music, one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
I think, I mean, not to get too dark, but like, I think that if, you're just by yourself, like in your apartment or your house or whatever, it's a friend, you're just hanging out like through your ups, your downs, you're with the music and you like go back to like a song that you were working on and you're just entertaining yourself, I think that's part of the question. But it also, it gives you community. I think that, kind of going back to like, when did you find out that you wanted to be a musician, or like, when did you want to like lean into it? I think it's also when you find that that's where you're going to find your people, your friend group. Yeah. The like-minded people,
That is where all of my current day friends came from.
Yep,
so yeah, I can agree with that for sure.
Whenever I've like relocated or found, had to like, move to a new city or whatever, it's like, you go back to like how you found your people that ended up being the foundation of where you're at. It all leads back to music.
Well,
in a way,
yeah,
for sure, yeah,
yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. That's a really cool insight.
Yeah,
you kind of had me for a second. You're like, it's going to get really dark, and I was like, oh no, these are all wonderful things.
Oh yeah.
No, but that's a cool way. And I've always been a big proprietor that music is very community driven, so I can agree with that second part.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah, even when you're just by yourself making music, alone in your like your studio, whatever you got going, I feel like that always pushes into a different horizon of like, whether or not it helps you make people that, you and me are here together.
Yeah, very much
connecting. So. And, art is really neat that way,
Yeah. Actually just a thought I had while you were saying it, I realized that the stimulation I get from making music is similar to the stimulation I get from a conversation with another person.
Totally.
That is something I had to get that out so I can reminisce on that later. So that's a really cool concept. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your answer. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But now let's go ahead and let's move on to some hypothetical questions.
Let's go.
And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well. But this first one's pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
Good grief, man. That's a great question. I feel like there's a lot of people that I don't know that are sort of behind the scenes people. I like people that are songwriters, not necessarily like singers or rappers straight up, but like, people that are, or, producers.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily have to have somebody with like a ton of credits or anything like that. But I don't know, man. It's like, if you're working with somebody, does that mean you're like making a song together? Like
so it's like that's kind of,
or is it somebody that you
wanna,
or you want to mine their brain for like, how did you write all these hit songs?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why kind of like the second half exists, to be a little more open-ended. Like you can pick a person and how you would want to do it.
Yeah.
I remember when I interviewed Camille Tredu, she's like, does it have to be a music person? And I was like, oh yeah. No, it doesn't.
There you go.
It can be anybody.
That's too outside of the box for me, though.
Yeah. I was just like, I prefer it is because I can't think of an outside answer like that. But yeah, no, it's always interesting to me to find out like, who's that somebody that does like, this would be an interesting person to sit down with.
Right.
Like, I have a hard time picking. I would love to sit down with I always tell people I want to interview Childish Gambino, but if I could sit down musically with
anybody,
it'd be Chromeo.
Okay.
Like, they're like, and they're so out there. I appreciate especially what they're doing now, but like every time I like see them doing stuff, I'm just like, I just want to have a day with y'all in the room. I don't need to be like too involved in anything. I just want to kind of experience that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then let's move to the second half of the question, which is subsequently, who is a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Gosh, that's a great question. I mean, it'd probably be somebody like outside of like my genre of music. This dude, I think his name's Dante Thomas.
Mhm.
Is that his name, right?
The name sounds it. I'm pretty sure. The name sounds super familiar.
I just think he's a great rapper. His lyrics and flow are just dope.
Is it like Dante with an E on the end?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's excellent. Yeah, I saw him before he got a little bit more ink.
Mhm.
And I think he had a song on like a PDX Pop Now comp. I think he's just top tier. It's really cool.
Well, everybody, you know what to do. Add them in the comments. Let's see if we can make that happen. And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limit, and it's pretty literal in this sense. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, is guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show, and it doesn't have to be a venue. It can be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
Like a city or
you can be as
festival.
You can be as specific as you would like with it.
Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, so like, I feel like I sort of excuse me. There's a lot of Southeast Asian sort of Japanese and Korean style of pop music that I sort of really gravitate towards. This band called Sunset Roller Coaster.
Oh, good name.
They're a Taiwanese band. And so I think that I would probably be pretty well received, like, because like I feel like there's like this genre of like smooth jazz, smooth city pop.
Yeah.
From Japan. Let's go with like Tokyo.
Okay, hell yeah.
And it's like 1985.
Yeah, I dig that for sure. Man, now I'm realizing that Prep tours over in that area a lot.
Oh, Prep's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
They're interesting. I've been trying to figure out how, because they're like English dudes, like 4 English dudes, and they live in Thailand, I think.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
That explains why they're always touring over there all the time.
I thought they just live down there. They're like English expats, and I have no idea how they can just pull off living down there, but they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Prep, and that's like a band that I sort of look towards a little bit as a little bit of a North Star sometimes. When I'm like, what are they doing? You know?
Yeah.
How cool and clean is their sound? February 2020 was like my last show that I saw. I drove down to San Francisco with my friend Mike, and they were playing at the Brick and Mortar in San Francisco.
I bet that was a great show.
It was an amazing show, and it was just like, it's just a fun weekend, and like, you know, they played all the hits that I like, and it was a sold out show.
Have you gotten a chance to check out their new album yet?
I think I put on like maybe the first song.
Yeah.
And it kind of just popped out pretty quick. I didn't feel like there was like a whole lot of press. It was just here's a new album, and it's just like a whole album. Okay, cool. So
yeah, and I only found out about it because it showed up on my release radar.
Yeah, but
I'm very curious to sit down with it because I think it just came out like 3 days ago. It's like new
for sure.
Well, I'll give it a listen and let you know what I think after.
Yeah, same.
But to wrap up the hypothetical question,
sure.
If you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday.
Sure.
Who would you want an album from?
Oh, I think like Jimi Hendrix, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No,
I mean, like, yeah, the people that got cut short. I mean, it's just like every song is a hit, you know.
Yeah, very much so.
Let's see what would have happened, you know.
Yeah. No, I'm a fan of him myself.
Yeah.
But that is definitely a solid answer.
Yeah.
All right, but let's go ahead and let's start wrapping this up.
Sure.
What can we look forward to between now and the end of the year?
Colin Jenkins, Seance Crasher, playing at Holocene, July 3rd, the night before our nation's birthday. So looking forward to that. We'll definitely putting together some more shows for the end of summer, early fall, and then definitely going to start sprinkling out some singles, some Colin Jenkins singles over this next year, and then probably release the whole thing unofficially by about fall.
Ah, exciting.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
For this next one, go and look straight at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You can check me out on Instagram at Colin Jenkins Music, on Twitter or actually X, Colin at Colin Jenkins _ yeah, those are my main two. What am I trying to say? Social networky.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
Sure. Yeah. I think, the dudes in my band, Machado Majiga, Alexander Thomas, Justin Chase, they all have their own bands and projects that they work with. And Machado obviously does his own stuff under his own name. And then Justin Chase, he's in a couple of bands, and one's called Male Blondes.
Oh yeah. Wait, does Justin run sound for Shanghai?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, that name sounds super familiar, but I'll check it out after this.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we've got...
It's adult Male Blondes. I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. But with that being said, we've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Yeah.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary and Ronald Records. Make sure to click the link below and check them out. Guarantee you're going to like them. With that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
Nice.
But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
Obviously, it's something like just out in the world, right?
Yeah.
Whew, that's a great question. Man, it's so weird because we live in this world now of just, single Spotify playlists, Apple Music playlists and stuff like that. So there's a ton of music out there that I think is great, but have I listened to that? I'd be like, oh, I'm a fan of this,
Yeah.
But I don't.
I mean,
I haven't gone through and checked out the whole album, but I would say Sunset Roller Coaster is like a fun jazz pop band. They're doing it right. Their live sound is, if you ever get a chance to check them out live, like the live performance like overdoes the album. Just like incredibly talented musicians, they just slay. So
okay. Well,
go there.
Thank you for that. Actually, I'm super excited to check them out.
Yeah.
And anytime a name jumps out like that, I'm just like, I have to know.
Yeah.
I have to know. Yeah. But with that being said, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Colin Jenkins.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap. This is not a podcast. This is a show. Keep jamming.